Welcome back to the podcast. Coming up on EV News Daily today, Dodge Charger EV gets revealed, Tesla's hit by eco-vandals, and an increase in EV sales just about everywhere. Plus, stay tuned, because later in the show, I'll tell you what Elon Musk said in response to that attack on Giga Berlin. Well, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you're listening around the world. It's EV News Daily, your trusted source of EV information for Wednesday, 6th of March. I'm Martin Lee. I go through every EV story, so you don't have to. We're live at 5 p.m. UK, midday Eastern. Patreon supporters get the episodes as soon as they're ready and ad-free. Be like them by clicking on a link in the show notes. See all 2,000 plus episodes in the archive at evnewsdaily.com. The Dodge Charger Daytona has debuted as the brand's first electric muscle car. They say the first electric muscle car. I don't know, I think that the Model S Plaid is pretty brutal. You could call that a muscle car, but either way, emphasizing performance rather than efficiency. So, you could say that they know the efficiency isn't the best, so this is a bit of a spin, or I think they probably have genuinely gone, let's make something as bonkers that fits in with the brand as we can, and it's not going to tick all the boxes for everything, but we can win some things. The Charger transitions to an all-electric lineup under the Daytona name, utilizing the STLA large platform. It's got a 400-volt electrical system. Now, there's a future SRT Banshee model, which will feature an 800-volt system and 2-speed transmission. That's coming later, though, alongside the combustion engine six-pack Chargers, as they call them, powered by a 3-litre twin turbo inline six. The 2024 Charger Daytona EV, though, initially available only as a two-door model, with four-door versions expected sometime next year. Both the RT and the Scat Pack trims offer dual electric motors, all-wheel drive then, 496 horsepower and 670 horsepower respectively. There's a so-called power shot overboost with a temporary 40 horsepower increase for up to 15 seconds, all coming from a usable battery pack of 93.9 kilowatt hours. The estimated EPA ranges are 317 miles for the RT pack and 260 miles for the Scat pack. Its onboard charger of 11 kilowatts on AC, DC charging at 183 kilowatts. Peak power acceleration is impressive. It's 4.7 seconds RT pack and 3.3 seconds for the Scat pack. Well, the electric Chargers feature Brembo brakes with 16-inch rotors, 6-piston calipers in the front and 4-piston units in the back, a brake-by-wire system. Interior highlights include a big freestanding display with a 10.3 or 16-inch digital gauge cluster and a 12.3-inch center touchscreen featuring the Uconnect 5 software. I'll pop a link in the show notes at evnewsdaily.com if you'd like to see a full gallery of pictures of this, which does look properly bonkers. Is it enough to win over the die-hard petrol heads? Well, I almost kind of don't care at this stage because, the EV revolution is happening whether they like it or not. They can get on board or not. EV power has a lot more torque and instant power and miles per mile. The thing they might miss is the noise, but there's a solution to that, sort of. Welcome to the Fratzonic chambered exhaust, as they've called it. They say it's a unique sound system. They say it's designed to emulate traditional exhaust notes for the all-electric model. But what exactly is it? Well, the company says it's an innovative feature that blends the Dodge heritage name Fratzog with Sonic to symbolize a modern twist on classic muscle car sounds. The system comprises of a speaker driver, they say, a tuning box, and dual passive radiators to mimic the decibel levels of Dodge's powerful Hellcat engines. Unlike simply replicating the Hellcat sounds, the Fratzonic exhaust will make distinct experiences tailored to the Charger Daytona's EV powertrain, with variances corresponding to the different drive modes. You can simulate revving if you're stopped at some lights, and it enhances the muscle car feel, they say, of the electric vehicle kind of context of driving it. If you want a quiet ride, of course you can turn it off and be completely disabled, which is what everyone's going to do, surely. Look, unless this is, you've got to try it, haven't you? It could be a real giggle, could be a gimmick that you can kind of roll out semi-regularly, or it could be a thing that you try once and then never use again. Personally, I like the silence of EVs. I quite like the sound of EV motors if it's kind of, the windows are down and depending on what car you're driving, because some EVs are a little bit whiny, but this won't be anyway. And, it's fine. So give people the option. I don't think most people will choose it. Hey, but by the way, trying to make this any more than what it is, a sound system with speaker drivers and it's a speaker. Right? That is all it is. I mean, I know they can't call it that, but the thing that I have behind me on the wall of the studio that makes a noise, I don't call it some sort of Fratzonic echo thing. It's just a speaker, Dodge. But anyway, thank you, marketing department. The Tesla Gigafactory near Grünheide outside of Berlin had a significant power outage yesterday, leading to an evacuation on Tuesday morning. An extremist group, which translates as Volcano Group. I won't attempt the German. My German's pretty bad. They've taken responsibility for disrupting the power supply to the Tesla facility and the area around it. Well, I found this report on the English language version of Deutsche Welle. They say that the sabotage involved setting a high-voltage pylon on fire between Steinfurt and Hartmannsdorf. Again, sorry, German listeners, it's pretty bad, I know. As stated in a letter from this terror group, Elon Musk condemned actions of the group, claiming responsibility for arson at Tesla's German factory, questioning their environmental motives. Well, the arson didn't just affect Tesla and the industrial area around it. The arson impacted the power supply to 2,000 households in various districts, as reported by a Deutsche Welle article. Musk countered the group's actions on Twitter, labeling them as counterproductive to the environmental efforts by targeting an electric vehicle plant. Brandenburg's Interior Minister, Michael Stubden, I'm so sorry, and state police have denounced the attack, and, of course, an official investigator, a criminal investigation into the incident has now started. Tesla said on Twitter, "We stand with our employees, the people of Grünheide and the surrounding area, and all those affected by this arson attack on the public power grid targeting Tesla. The safety of our more than 12,000 Tesla employees is our top priority, and we're glad that no one was injured in this attack. In addition to us, many other people in the region have been affected by the power outage. The Tesla team is truly grateful for the outpouring of support from all parts of Germany and the world. We will not let acts of terrorism deter us from our mission to accelerate the transition to renewable energy and sustainable transportation." This has to be one of the dumbest bits of eco-terrorism I've heard of in such a long time, affecting thousands of people as well as a company that you want to target, which in itself is a really dumb thing to do. But those people at home on medical equipment or new babies or whatever, this is a cold time of year. Germany can get pretty nippy. It's just you affect so many people, innocent people, in what is an utterly misguided attack in the first place. And I hope, of course, those people are caught and entirely brought to justice. There is absolutely nothing wrong with standing up for what you believe. Indeed, a local vote recently, last week, 70% of local residents objected to the current state of Tesla's plans. And although it wasn't legally binding, the area did say they would abide by it. Tesla said, okay, we understand. We'll go back and redraw up the plans. They're having open days in the lobby of the area where local residents can come in and see the plans and ask questions and community outreach as well. Look, no company's perfect. I'm not defending Tesla or anyone in particular here, but they're doing what they can in the local area, reviving what was a pretty down area anyway. And this just seems like such a dumb move. Thank goodness. As far as we know so far, nobody was hurt by that. Full link in the show notes if you'd like to find out more from the links that I've put down there. Next in the news, we'll talk about the Audi Q4 e-tron getting an update for 2024 with more power, efficiency and better charging. Audi updating the Q4 e-tron lineup to be competitive in a rapidly evolving, very highly competitive segment that they are in, discontinuing the old 40 and 50 models and the new 45 and 55 versions. Both models maintain the usable 77 kilowatt hours in the battery pack, but have seen improvements in power and efficiency thanks to better battery chemistry, a new electric motor from the mothership at Volkswagen, and other modifications. Auto Express magazine here in the UK say the Q4 45 e-tron now delivers 282 brake horsepower, 0 to 62 miles an hour, that's 0 to 100 kph in 6.7 seconds. Not particularly quick, but that is an improvement on its predecessor. What about the big 55 e-tron? It ups the power, 335 horsepower, and does the dash in 5.4 seconds. Efficiency gains are also significant. 330 miles of range on a single charge, the Quattro version doing 319, with the 55 model 312 miles. Of course, they're all WLTP on the European test cycle. As for charging, that's been improved too, with the rear-wheel drive now getting 135 kilowatts peak, and the Quattro models getting 175 kilowatts peak. Audi say 20 to 80. I wish everyone would do 10 to 80. It just annoys me when people sort of try and game the numbers. 20 to 80 in 28 minutes. Probably because 10 to 80 would be over half an hour, and psychologically that's bad. But still, Audi, just own it. 10 to 80%, everyone, please. Pricing strategy aims to attract a broad range of buyers, with the entry-level 45 priced at just under £50,000. And of course, there are incremental increases for the Sportback variant, the Quattro all-wheel drive, and the flagship 55 as well. Pop a link to Auto Express in the show notes below. Okay, let's move on and talk Mini next, launching the first electric version of the Countryman, marking the beginning of a new lineup of EVs from Mini. Unlike the upcoming models like the Cooper E hatchback and the Aceman, they're going to be on a pure EV platform. This Countryman is still on the platform shared with BMW models like the X2, the iX2 and the iX1. Well, Autocar magazine being invited to somewhere sunny in Europe by the look of it to go and test this car. The vehicle interior features the big round touchscreen, traditional Mini dials, the OLED touchscreen for controlling various functions like the infotainment, and there are 8 selectable experiences, they say, that alter both the screen appearance and the ambient sound. The Countryman Electric has 2 configurations: single motor front-wheel drive, 309 horsepower for the entry-level model, and a dual-motor all-wheel drive setup for the all-4 version, a 65 kilowatt-hour battery, range 287 miles for the E269 for the all-4. As for charging, well, it peaks out at 130 kilowatts, and like the subtitle on screen says, it doesn't particularly win any of the spec wars because it's not a particularly amazing platform, and the pure electric stuff and the custom platform is all on the way from BMW and the mothership. But this Mini is not about winning the fastest charging or going the biggest distance. I mean, look, the Mini is anything but Mini these days. It's a really big vehicle, and there's loads of room for a decent size 65 kilowatt hour battery. What this does, though, is charm. Now, I had a Mini Cooper, probably ran it for about 18 months. It was a work car many years ago. Combustion, of course, but long time ago. And we loved that. And it was properly like a go-kart. And the cliche is true. And so if they can continue to offer that feeling inside an electric package, which, reading the review, by the sounds of it, they absolutely loved driving this vehicle because of the personality, the character, the charm of it. That seems to be the essence of what Mini's all about, and they've still captured that. Link in the show notes if you'd like to read more. Well, it seems to be a day for talking about improved electric vehicles and car stuff, which is, I like these days. Now we're talking about the e-Transit. That also has seen a bump for 2024, an upgraded battery pack with more usable capacity, 68 kilowatt hours to 89 kilowatt hours in the US version of the e-Transit. The battery enhancement boosts the EPA range from 159 miles to from 126 to 159. That's a significant boost on the outgoing e-Transit, making it a lot more usable. Well, Ford themselves report a 26% range increase for the low-roof models and a 32% range increase for the high-roof variants, despite the average US commercial van only needing 74 miles of range a day. Ford responds to the pressure of some of the competition by offering more range. The van's peak DC fast charging is also improved to 176 kilowatts, adding 67 miles of range in just 15 minutes. Well, Ford introduces dual onboard chargers and compatibility with the J3400 connector to access those Tesla superchargers. The e-Transit comes equipped with Pro Power on board, 2.4 kilowatts of power to operate equipment while the van is moving or charging. Now, Ford plans to open orders for the 2024 e-Transit this spring, with deliveries expected later in the year. Starting price $51,000 before destination charges, and it could well be eligible for the $7,500 commercial clean vehicle tax credit. I think I've got that right. For fleet use in certain leases. Read more with a link in the show notes. Let's look at some sales numbers coming in from around the world today. In February, the UK saw 14,991 new battery electric vehicle registrations, a 22% increase compared to the same period last year. Battery electric vehicles were 17.7%. Easy for me to say, of the total market share here in the UK, rising from January's 14.7%. So a big increase. We love to see that. According to this Electrified article, the milestone of 1 million electric vehicles and 60,000 electric vans registered in the UK was achieved last month in January. Fleet operators and businesses significantly contributing to the EV purchases rather than individual retail purchases. Registrations of plug-in hybrid vehicles saw a rise as well, with 6,098 units registered. That is a 30% year-on-year increase and a 7.2% market share. The Tesla Model Y emerged as the most popular electric vehicle model, even ranking 8th in the overall vehicle purchases, not just EVs. Model Y and Model 3 both have great months here. Depends on deliveries and stuff, doesn't it, with the way Tesla works and shipments in the, of course, right-hand drive models. But fantastic to see that despite all of the headlines we seem to read lately, when you look at the data, EV sales are doing well. And not just in the UK, because next we'll go to Norway. Last month in February, Norway's plug-in market share was, I love saying this, it's mind-blowing, 92.1%. Battery electric vehicles were over 90% of the figure, and that increase follows recent tax adjustments, marking the second month where BEV sales surpassed 90%. Now, this is a Kling Technica article, and the brilliant Max Holland, always looking into the data. I learned so much from Kling Technica. The Model Y was a quarter of all sales. So I'll say that again. The Model Y was a quarter of all sales. Man, the Norwegians love their Teslas. The breakdown of EV sales was 90.1, so just tipped over 90. Still counts, 90.1% BEVs, 2% plug-in hybrids, and the dynamics are changing much more in the favour of pure electric vehicles if you look at the data year on year. Now, the economic pressure on Norwegian consumers has heightened because of the increased taxation on non-BEVs, and there's a noticeable lack of budget-friendly EVs in Norway as well. So if you think that through, and it is a very good point this article makes in that, yeah, EVs are doing really well in Norway, and yes, combustion stuff is taxed very highly, but there is a real lack of affordable cars. I mean, anywhere, really. There's no sort of 10, 12 grand EVs outside of China. And that's the next piece of the jigsaw puzzle. We won't do it all overnight, but it's all being done very quickly, and Norway's leading the way. A JATO report highlighting the deliberate strategy of European automakers to maintain very high BEV prices, contributing to the scarcity of affordable stuff for us to buy. But I do know that, that is changing. We all know the incoming Chinese cars, certainly here in Europe, are going to force those prices down. Regulations are changing. We have some rules here in the UK with the mandate of how many EVs have to be sold by car makers sort of this year, next year, the following year. It escalates as well. And so we know those cheaper EVs are coming. We just want them right now, don't we? But I'll pop a link to all that data in those show notes. And, of course, on the website at evnewsdaily.com. Well, Volvo's EX30 is all part of the reason why Volvo's vehicle sales were electrified in February. Volvo's introduction of the small, all-electric EX30 really enhanced its EV sales last month in February, achieving a record share. Sales of Volvo's EVs surged 14%, setting a new benchmark for the company. This electric article pointing out that last month Volvo sold 22,000 electrified vehicles. That includes plug-in hybrids as well. That's 44% of total sales. 44% of the business had a plug socket on the side of it. The share of fully electric vehicles alone was 22%, with 11,000 units delivered, and that's a year-on-year increase of 14%. All these numbers are up and incredible, but we keep being told that no one's buying EVs, that the EV sales have dropped off for some reason, but the data just don't agree. The EX30 model was a big contributor to last month's success, with 6,000 units sold in the first 2 months of this year alone, since deliveries began in parts of Europe and China. I'll double check that now that my mouth has said something that my brain isn't fully corroborating. Volvo CEO Jim Rowan emphasizing the company's pricing strategy. EX30 begins at $35,000 US, 36,000 euros here, and that is just more Wow, great news from a company that was one of the first to say we're going to go all electric and continues to lead the way. And so all of that brilliant EV sales data combined, but what does it mean in the real world? Well, the new report coming out showing that EVs are making a significant impact in the reduction of oil consumption and transportation emissions globally, according to the International Energy Agency, the IEA, representing about 75% of global energy usage across 31 member countries, says that annually they track worldwide energy consumption and emissions, and they can now tell us the 2023 data. EVs accounted for 1 out of every 5 new cars sold worldwide, with total EV sales 14 million. Of course, China, the number one market. That's a 35% increase on the previous year. EV sales continue to break all records. The United States is the one place where, although we saw EV sales finally go over 1 million last year and hit 10% of the market, driven by California, of course, is the one place where the global shift towards electrification hasn't been quite as fast, but the mass adoption of EVs in the US market is certainly not up for debate, and it's just the timing that's going to perhaps change. China leads the world in EV sales, had a big impact from their transition there, despite a 50% rise in highway mileage following the pandemic restrictions easing the previous year. And everyone getting back on the road. Gasoline consumption only increased by 10%, despite a record increase in global emissions last year. We're not reducing emissions. They are still going up, according to this report. The situation would have been so much worse without the significant growth of electrical vehicle sales. So the job's not done. There's so much more work to do. It's why I do this podcast every single day, to try and tell people about the amazing, not only cars and vehicles and technology and batteries and storage and renewables, and I love all of this, but also the real reason we're doing this and the impact is not only to drive better vehicles, because EVs are just better, full stop, and I'll fight you to the end of the day on that one, but also because of the impact on what we leave behind as our legacy. And maybe, I don't know, having a 45-year-old midlife crisis of like, what am I leaving behind? But this is such an important amount of work that we're doing right now in this crucial decade. Now is not the time to let up on that move to EV. All right, one more story. We'll take a look at the European Union next. Finally today, the EU is considering a retroactive tariff on Chinese EV imports. The European Commission has started a customs registration for Chinese electric vehicle imports starting this Thursday, and that paves the way for potential tariffs in the future based on the outcome of the ongoing anti-subsidy investigation. Well, we know this probe is focused on examining whether Chinese EVs benefit from unfair subsidies, threatening the competitiveness of the locally made EV producers. A conclusion to the investigation is expected this November, with the possibility of provisional duties being levied as early as July. The initial findings indicate evidence of Chinese EVs receiving subsidies. Coupled with a 14% year-on-year increase in imports since the investigation began last October. Now, the Commission expresses concern over the potential irreversible harm to the EU automotive industry if the influx of cheap Chinese EVs continues unabated until the investigation ends, and could look at some retroactive tariffs in there as well. Of course, China has pushed back very hard on this, as you can imagine. And that is your podcast for today. Well, if you'd like this podcast ad-free, and by the way, make sure you are fully signed up to the audio version on your podcast apps. You can get it on, obviously, Apple, Spotify, Google, Amazon, YouTube Music, and all the others as well. Just search EV News Daily for the free version, and it will always be free. But if you'd like your podcasts ad-free, you can do that, and you can sign up on Patreon. You get your own link. I think they've got their own app now. I'll double-check. One of my listeners sent me an email to say, hey, there's the Patreon app as well now, which is easy to listen to the podcast rather than just copying and pasting that sort of private RSS feed. I'll have a look into that, which you can do. Patreon.com/EVNewsDaily, $5 or $10 a month. That's like a posh coffee or two, and you can support the work that I do here This is my work, and spread the word about EVs. Thanks, as always, to the premium partners of the show, those individuals and organisations that get a daily mention. Porsche of the Village in Cincinnati, Audi of Cincinnati East, Volvo Cars of Cincinnati East, National Car Charging on the US mainland and Aloha Charge in Hawaii, Derek Riley from Nevo.ie and the Nevo EV Review Ireland YouTube channel, Octopus Electriverse, global public charging made simple with one app and one map, and Lease Plan Electric Moments, all the tools and guidance EV drivers need. Have a good one tomorrow, and remember, there is no such thing as a self-charging hybrid.